my name's Bandy, and this is my channel, BandysBooks. And today I'm here to talk to you about my June TBR. In the United States, June is Pride Month, and for Pride Month, we're celebrating people from the LGBTQIA plus community. And in honor of Pride Month, I thought that I would do a Pride TBR. So the books on my TBR this month will all be either by LGBTQIA plus authors or featuring LGBTQIA plus characters. There are so many good books on this TBR. Honestly, tons of books that I've been looking forward to reading for a really, really long time. And one refrain that you'll be hearing from me repeatedly is how stunning the book looks. There are so many really pretty books on this TBR. Anyways, I'm really excited about this. I don't want to ramble on anymore. Let's just get straight into the books. The first book that I'm going to be talking to you about today is one that I started reading already. We're into the second day of the month, so I'm about halfway through this book and I anticipate finishing it very rapidly. I'm really enjoying it so far, and that's Iron Widow by Ziran J. Zhao. This book is set in a place called Waxia, and the main character's name is Wu Zetan. Wu Zetan is initially a young peasant girl, and she is drafted into the military to be a pilot. Normally, being a pilot would be something of an honorable thing, I suppose, but in this case, Wu Zetan is focused on one thing and one thing only. Her sister was a pilot before her and was killed by her partner. Wu Zetan is going into being a pilot seeking revenge. Her only goal is to be partnered up with the same pilot that killed her sister and to kill him in return. The reason that the pilots are being teamed up is that the aircraft that they're flying requires two pilots, one male, one female, and they use sort of a spiritual power to control the craft that they're flying, basically. And in essence, the male pilot is using the female pilot as a channel for his power. And what is happening is that oftentimes in the story, the male partners are stronger and they accidentally kill their female partners by overwhelming them with their powers. That's pretty much what happened to Wu Zetan's sister. So when Wu Zetan becomes a pilot, she finds out that there's actually this whole government conspiracy to keep female pilots submissive and subservient by not allowing them to explore their powers, by constantly matching them with more powerful partners, etc. And she also finds out that this whole situation with fighting these alien invaders is not how it seems at first. It's a really interesting concept, really, really unique. I've seen a lot of sci-fi movies and I've read a lot of sci-fi books, and I feel like this is a pretty unique scenario. I also really, really love how this kind of leans against a lot of tropes, or goes against a lot of tropes, I should say. So if you've read a lot of dystopian fiction, you'll know that the love triangle is a really, really common trope. It's infuriating. I feel like I've read it so many times over, and I'm so sick of the angsty teenage female character falling in love with two different guys and being torn and angsty about it, and the two guys are fighting and being angsty about it, and it's just, I'm over it. Like, it's not that cute or original. And what I really love in this story is that there is a triangle, and it is a love triangle, but it's not a jealous, angry, hateful love triangle. There's Wu Zetan and then her two male characters that play important roles in her life. And she grows to love both of them. And her love for them is equal and unique and distinct. And the thing that I love the most is that they're not jealous. They're not fighting each other because of her. They actually develop their own relationship. So the two of them have a relationship. They each have a relationship with her. She has a relationship with each of them. And they all acknowledge that it's possible for you to love one person and that love not affect the love that you have for the other person. They're very much a team. They're a trio in every sense of the word, and it's just a beautiful portrait of a polyamorous relationship. I appreciated that they're open, they're honest, everybody's on the same page, and I just really felt that that was refreshing compared to, like I said, the jealous normal love triangle that we get. I know that polyamory isn't for everyone, and I'm not suggesting that it is. I'm just saying that I think in this particular instance, this book did a really good job of representing what a healthy polyamorous relationship would look like and what healthy communication in a relationship look like, period. I also love, like I said, that the two men in the relationship have both a relationship with each other and with the female character. I think it's just really beautifully done how they handle that whole dynamic. I also love that Wu Zetian is a super strong, badass character. She is just fierce. She knows who she is. She knows what she wants. And every time she gains new information, she adjusts and continues to be the fierce, badass warrior that she is. I really, really relate to her. I really love her as a character, and I really love everything about this book so far. So if you are a sci-fi fan or a dystopian fan, definitely put this on your list. After that, I have a book that is something of a classic. I don't read a whole lot of classic books, so this is a little bit off of my typical comfort zone, but I'm actually kind of excited about it. And that is Giovannis Room by James Baldwin. This is a short book, probably I think the shortest one that I have on this TBR, and it's 170 pages. It's set in 1950s Paris, and a American expat is there. He's waiting for his wife, or his fiancée, I should say. And while he's waiting for his fiancée to come to Paris, he meets Giovanni and happens to spark a relationship with him. He and Giovanni have this relationship over the course of several months, and then eventually the fiancé shows up, and he has this dilemma of, do I come out as an openly homosexual man and be with Giovanni, or do I choose the route of being a heterosexual man and marry this woman? And it is going to explore, the human heart and the choices we have to make. I'm looking forward to this. James Baldwin is a pretty prolific author. This is the first book of his that I have read or will read, and I'm very excited about that. After that, I have I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. I love this cover. It's so pretty and bright. I love all the different colors on it. This was a gift from my friend Carly Sunshine Books over on Instagram. She sent this to me last November when Gibson passed away. It was like a little gift, to make me feel better, and it's like one of my most treasured books. I'm really looking forward to reading it. This is about a set of twins, Jude and Noah. They're very, very close. It starts when they're 13. They're super close. Noah's in love with the boy next door. Jude is a daredevil. She likes to cliff dive and wear a bright red lipstick. But eventually they have a falling out, and then it picks up when they're 16, 3 years later. They're barely speaking. Something happened to wreck their relationship, and it takes Jude meeting a cocky, broken, beautiful boy, as well as someone else, to kind of force some change in her life. The early years of the story are Noah's to tell, and the later years are Jude's. So I'm really looking forward to this. I'm sure this is going to be really good. I'm very much looking forward to it. Next up is a book that is probably, I think, my favorite book cover on the entire list, and that is Felix Ever After by Kaysen Callender. Look how pretty this book is. So this book is about main character Felix. He is kind of concerned that he is never going to find love. He feels like he is maybe one marginalization too many. It says that he's black, queer, and trans, and he's afraid he'll never get his own happily ever after. An anonymous student begins sending him transphobic messages and publicly posts Felix's dead name as well as photos pre-transition. Eventually, Felix decides that he's going to get him back and comes up with a plan for revenge, but what he didn't count on is his catfish scenario landing him in a quasi-love triangle. I have heard nothing but good things about this book. I've been seeing it on Instagram quite a lot lately, and I am very excited to read about this. I will say that I haven't read that many books about trans characters. It is an area where I can definitely do better in terms of reading, and I'm very much looking forward to reading. After that, I have the book Darling by Kay Ankrum. This is a Peter Pan retelling. Wendy moves to Chicago and meets Peter Pan upon arrival. He invites her out for a night at a club. At the club, she meets Tinkerbell and the Lost Boys, as well as Detective Hook. She does not like Detective Hook at all. And basically, she ends up in a scenario where she has to stay safe for the night, and she has to keep the Lost Boys and Tinkerbell and everyone else safe with her. This sounds really interesting. It's funny because I actually have two Peter Pan retellings on my bookshelves right now, which is probably more than any other retelling at the moment. And I'm really looking forward to this one. It sounds very unique. It came out last year, and I've had it on my shelf for, I don't know, maybe 8 months now. So I'm looking forward to finally getting to it, and also another really pretty cover. After that, I have the start of a 7 or 8 book series, and that is Every Heart a Doorway by Shannon McGuire. Hopefully I've said that first name correctly. I believe this is an Irish name, and I believe it's pronounced Shannon. But if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments how you pronounce it correctly. So this book is about secret doorways. Essentially, kids fall through these secret doorways. They fall through the darkness under the bed, the space at the back of the closet, down wells, rabbit holes, etc. And they end up in somewhere else, basically, like a alternate universe. Nancy, in particular, tumbled down one once, but she's made it back. The things she's experienced have changed her, and children that she ends up with under Mrs. West's care understand all of that too well. Each of them is seeking a way back into their own fantasy world. But Nancy's arrival marks a change at the home. There's a darkness just around each corner, and when tragedy strikes, it's up to Nancy and her newfound schoolmates to get to the heart of things, no matter the cost. So this is kind of interesting because I've heard so many good things about the series as a whole, but this particular book has a very low average rating and a lot of reviews saying how confusing it is. Almost all of them say, like, if you can get past this book and get into the rest of the books, it's a great series. It's just this first one that's a little bit tricky. That said, it's only like not even 200 pages, 171 pages. So it's a short read. I'm looking forward to it. I definitely will be pursuing further books in the series because I know, like I said, that this one is kind of a mixed bag. But I'm really looking forward to checking it out. After that, I have a book that I was just gifted like a week ago, and it is also a stunner, and that is This Poison Heart by Callan Bayron. This book features a character named Bree, and she has a magical gift. She can touch a single seed and grow it in an instant from seed to plant. And when her aunt dies, she leaves her dilapidated estate in rural New York. Bree and her parents move there, and they hope that her being surrounded by all these plants and flowers will give her a chance to kind of gain control of her power. It kind of turns out a bit different than they expect. So instead of it being this magical thing, it's kind of a bit sinister. It comes with a mysterious set of instructions, a walled garden filled with the deadliest botanicals in the world, and generations of secrets. There is more to Bree's sudden inheritance than she could have imagined, and she is determined to uncover it. This sounds super interesting. I love the idea of being able to grow plants at your whim, and I've heard really good things about this book. I have a couple friends that have read it, and they all really loved it. I'm very much looking forward to it. After that is a more classical book, and that is Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil by John Berendt. This book is set in the South. So shots ring out in Savannah's grandest mansion in the misty early mornings of May 2nd, 1981. Was it murder or self-defense? For nearly a decade, the shooting and its aftermath reverberate through this hauntingly beautiful city of moss-hung oaks and shaded squares. The thing that is interesting about this book, and actually really called me to it, was that it has like a whole ensemble cast. There is a huge amount of diversity in the ensemble cast. There's like a vast variety of different characters, and I understand that their perspective is kind of shown throughout the story. So I'm very much looking forward to reading this one. It sounds like it's going to be very interesting. Next up is my nonfiction read, or at least one of my nonfiction reads. That is Please Miss, A Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Penis by Grace Lavery. So this was a book that I was given by Sill Press Publishing, and it is about Grace's experiences dealing with drugs, her transition, and several other subjects. I want to read you specifically like one of the paragraphs of the description just because it's so uniquely written, I can't really explain it myself. Lights up on Grace Lavery, reformed druggie, unreformed omnisexual chaos muppet, and 100% all-natural, synthetically cultivated female hormone monster. As soon as she solves her penis problem, she begins receiving anonymous letters, seemingly sent by a cult of sinister clowns, and sets out a magical mystery tour to find the source of these surreal missives. Of course, what recently transitioned, recently sober Grace is looking for in this hall of mirrors is herself. So this is kind of a memoir of her experiences finding herself through her transition and her sobriety. And Grace is a really interesting person. If you have a chance to follow her on Instagram, she is very, very, very much an active trans advocate. I appreciate all the work that she's doing speaking out in terms of inclusivity and diversity. I'm really looking forward to reading her story here. I think it's going to be humorous and insightful and a lot of other things. Next up is a book that I think was probably the book I looked forward to most out of anything this year. In 2021, the first book in the series was like one of my favorite reads of the whole entire year. And so when I saw that the second book was coming out this year, I was like happy dance everywhere. And that is Fevered Star by Rebecca Rowanhorse. This book is, well, I don't actually even really know that much about book 2. I've tried to purposefully avoid any information, tried really hard not to read a whole bunch about it, because I didn't want to spoil it for myself. But basically the setup from book 1 is that we're on a continent, kind of feels like South America to me. It seems to be an amalgamation of several different native cultures to create these different native tribes in the story. So we have several different indigenous tribes in this world, and they all have different religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs. The different leaders of the different spiritual groups kind of come to a head. They meet and chaos breaks out, basically. And in essence, there's a power struggle to be the reigning religion or the reigning political power, however you want to look at it. But the story is a multi-POV story, and I really loved the different POVs. The different characters were really unique. The way that they approach relationships, all sorts of different stuff. It's just such a fascinating book. And then for the second book to come out, I'm super excited. The back of it says, "The great city of Tova is shattered. The sun is held with the smothering grip of the crow god's eclipse. But a comet that marks the death of a ruler and heralds the rise of a new order is imminent. The Meridian, a land where magic has been codified and the worship of God suppressed. How do you live when legends come to life and the fate that you had is rewarded? As sea captain, Ziala is swept up in the chaos and currents of change. She finds an unexpected ally in the former priest of knives. From the clan matriarchs of Tova, tense alliances form as far-flung enemies gather, and the war in the heavens is reflected upon the earth. As for Serapio and Narampa, both now living avatars, the struggle for free will and personhood in the face of destiny rages. How will Serapio stay human when he is steeped in prophecy and surrounded by those who desire only his power? Is there a future for Narampa in a transformed Tova without her total destruction?" The description doesn't even do it justice. The main characters are Ziala, Serapio, and Narampa. They're like the main POV characters, but there's so many other characters as well that are super interesting. Ziala is bisexual. There is a character that is genderqueer. There's just really great representation, and it flows. One of the things that I love is it flows so seamlessly in this book. Next up, I have the first book of another series by one of my favorite authors, and that is The Extraordinaries by TJ Klune. This is a bit different than his books that I've read previously. So I've read Under the Whispering Door and The House on the Cerulean Sea, both of which I really love and were great reads, highly recommend. The Extraordinaries is a book of three, or a series of 3, I believe, and this features a young man named Nick who at the start of the story is satisfied writing about fictional superheroes. But then he has the chance to meet his real life superhero, Nova City's Shadow Star, and it inspires him to want to become a real superhero. So he sets out to make himself something more. Sounds really cute. I've heard good things about it. I don't know, I think if I remember correctly, I've heard the first book is really good, and then I've seen kind of mixed reviews on the second and third books. I'm really looking forward to getting into this. Like I said, I really love TJ Klune's writing, so I'm sure I'm going to enjoy this one. After that, I have a book that has been on my TBR for a very, very long time that I've also been putting off because I'm super, super nervous about reading it. And I'm still really nervous about reading it, but I think it's time. That is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. So A Little Life follows 4 classmates in New York City. They're broke, they're adrift, they're living in an apartment together, I think, at one point. Eventually, this book starts out kind of focused on all 4 of them, but I think eventually it kind of focuses in on one of them named Jude. Jude has had a hard life, from what I understand. I believe that he was pretty horribly abused, and there's been a lot that he's gone through. If you're unfamiliar with this book, which I don't really know how anyone is at this point, because even if this isn't your style of reading, it's just everywhere. It's been everywhere for such a long time. But if you're not familiar with this book, you can go to the YouTube search bar, type in A Little Life. You'll find like hundreds of videos of people literally sobbing while reading this book. Reading vlog after reading vlog of people being like, I'm just so crushed, I'm heartbroken, I just want to protect Jude. I have tried to avoid spoilers and tried to avoid like really learning about the book in any detail. I just know that it's really heartbreaking, really traumatic and tragic, and it's a pretty dark read. Is it gonna make me cry? Probably not. I'm not a really big crier. I'm not somebody that's like very emotional in that way. Will it be a difficult read though? Probably. I'm sure it's gonna be very emotional. I'm sure I'm gonna be sad, angry, frustrated, and many other emotions at the end of it. But I think it's finally time to pull the trigger and read this one. After that, I have Detransition Baby by Tori Peters. This is a really interesting book. So Reese and Amy are a married couple. Amy decides that she's going to detransition back to become Ames. When she detransitions, everything falls apart. Reese is caught in a self-destructive pattern. She's avoiding her loneliness by sleeping with married men. Ames isn't happy either after he detransitions, because he thought, like, in detransitioning, he thought that he would make life easier, but instead he ends up alienating Reese. And so he has an affair with a lady named Katrina. Katrina ends up getting pregnant. And then Ames kind of thinks that maybe this could end up in a relationship where Ames and Reese and Katrina all cohabitate and raise this baby together. I've heard really good things about this book too. I'm really interested in this. I don't know honestly anything about the idea of detransitioning. I've heard a lot about the transition, like transitioning to the gender that you feel you are, and living as your true self and everything, but I've never really heard much about the concept of detransitioning to your previous identity. I'm really interested to hear about that in this book. And after that, I have They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. This is another book I've had for a long time and been meaning to read and just haven't gotten around to it. Basically, on September 5th, death calls on Mateo and Rufus and lets them know they have 24 hours left to live. For whatever reason, each of them is looking for a friend for that last 24 hours, and there's an app for that called Last Friend. Through it, they meet and they have one final epic adventure to live a lifetime in a single day. I've also heard lots of really good things about this. I've heard it's a very emotional read, and I'm looking forward to it. I actually really like the concept of knowing 24 hours ahead of time that you're going to die and having that 24 hours to spend as you please. Next up, I have A Little Hope by Ethan Joella. Another pretty book. This one features two characters named Freddie and Greg. They seem to have it all: a comfortable home at the edge of the woods, a beautiful young daughter, and a bond that feels unbreakable. Greg gets diagnosed with a rare and aggressive form of cancer, and the sense of certainty they once knew evaporates. Greg's boss, Alex, grapples with a secret of his own. Meanwhile, Darcy is still coming to terms with the loss of her husband as she worries about her struggling adult son, Luke. Deeply resonant debut that immerses the reader in a community of friends, family, and neighbors. A Little Hope celebrates the importance of small moments and connection. So this seems like it'll be kind of emotional, but like in a sweet way. I'm hoping that it's going to be a happily ever after. I really hope it's not going to be a heartbreaker. After that, I have Open by Rachel Krantz. So this is Rachel's memoir of non-monogamy. She's in a relationship and the subject of non-monogamy comes up, and she decides that she's going to go ahead and explore that option. This is literally just what happens to her as she proceeds down the road of non-monogamy. And I'm really looking forward to reading this. This was an ARC that I received from a Goodreads giveaway, and I think this is going to be very interesting. I don't know a whole ton about non-monogamous relationships, and this is going to deal with sexuality and gender and things as well, so I'm looking forward to this. After that, I have What If It's Us, which was co-written by Becky Albertalli and Adam Silvera. Funny enough, I actually haven't read anything by either author, even though they're both wildly popular. And this book features Arthur and Ben, They have a meet cute at the post office, and they get separated, but then they're reunited. They worry that they can't quite nail a first date or a second date or a third. They try too hard. Ben doesn't try hard enough. What if life really isn't like a Broadway show? But what if it is? So this is going to be, I think, a cute like rom-com sort of a scenario. I don't read a ton of romance. It's not necessarily my genre of preference, but I felt like I had to try and step out of my comfort zone a little bit and try at least 1 or 2 romances this month. So this will be my romance selection. After that, I have Bulla by Pajtim Statovici. Hopefully I've pronounced that name right. I'm sorry if I haven't. This sounds like a really interesting book. This is also kind of a shorter read. I feel like I had a couple books that ended up on the short end of things this month. This one comes in at just above 200 pages, and this features 2 characters, one named Arsim, who's 24 years old and he's recently married, and one named Milos. They are in Kosovo. So Arsim is Albanian and Milos is Serbian. They start a relationship. Basically, Arsim's wife announces her first pregnancy right as he starts a relationship with Milos. And as their relationship is beginning, war breaks out. They end up in different places, have to make difficult choices for their families, and eventually are reunited when Arsim is returned to Pristina, the city that they started in. This sounds super interesting. I found this at Barnes & Noble a while back, and I've been meaning to get to it. I'm really looking forward to it this month. And the final book on the list, it is a hefty one, let me tell you. It is by far bigger than any of the other books. And that is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This book, I honestly have been seeing everywhere, and I still somehow know almost nothing about it. I really love Samantha Shannon's writing. I started the Bone Season series, and it's one of my favorite series that I started last year. So when this came out, I was like, I gotta pick this up. And this is about a Queen Sabran, the 9th, who must conceive a daughter to protect her realm from destruction, but assassins are getting closer to her door. Iad Durian is an outsider at court. Though she has risen to the position of lady-in-waiting, she is loyal to a hidden society of mages. Iad keeps a watchful eye on Sabran, secretly protecting her with forbidden magic. Across the dark sea, Tane has trained all her life to be a dragon rider, but is forced to make a choice that could see her life unravel. Meanwhile, the divided East and West refuse to parley, and forces of chaos are rising from their sleep. I've been hearing so much good stuff about this. Everyone that I know that's read it really loved it. I'm sure I'm going to love it too. As I mentioned, I really like Samantha Shannon's writing, and I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Let's see, how long is this? This clocks in at... Ooh, there's a whole bunch of timelines and stuff. Close to 800 pages. That is one hefty book there. And also a really cool cover, by the way. And that's it for my TBR. I'm so excited about these books. I'm really looking forward to getting into them. I'm really pleased with, the variety. I've got sci-fi, fiction, nonfiction, romance, and contemporary and literary fiction. I've got stuff that's going to be happy, fluffy, stuff that's going to be sad and depressing, and everything in between. So I think that's it. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button and comment down below. Let me know what you're going to be reading in June. I'd love to hear about your TBR, or if you're a mood reader, let me know what you're currently reading. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button. I've got lots of bookish content coming your way. Other than that, we'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.